Welcome to Boob Talk with your host, Cynthia Rogers. It's time to get it off our chest as we discuss the issues breast cancer and other cancer survivors face. Come along on our journey. We are survivors. It's time for Survivor Spotlight, shining the light on the courage, hope, and faith of our survivor's journey. You are listening to Boob Talk, and I'm your host, Cynthia Rogers, and we have been talking about breast density with our special guest, Leslie Ferris Yerger. She's an author, speaker, and founder of My Density Matters. She's also a breast cancer survivor. And now, Leslie, I want to know what inspired you to create My Density Matters.
Oh, thank you for asking. One of my favorite stories to tell, of course. So in 2017, November, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, and that was 2 months after an all-clear mammogram and ultrasound.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was the shock of my life, of course, because I didn't understand. I thought, well, this is probably a misdiagnosis because it's not possible, right? Because I just had a mammogram and an ultrasound, and that didn't find anything. So this diagnosis must be wrong. And so I went to the Mayo Clinic for a second opinion. I only live about 5.5 hours from the Mayo Clinic, fortunately, for me. So I was able to get in there, and because I wanted a second opinion, because I was so confused. And they confirmed the diagnosis. Of course, the diagnosis was correct. But through that whole process, I learned what happened. And that is that my breast cancer was not visible on a mammogram or an ultrasound. And so I began to learn what breast density was all about, as we've been discussing. And really, the one sentence that I can say that kind of drives everything that I do now, including my creation of My Density Matters, is that I don't want what happened to me to happen to other people. I don't want my story to become anyone else's story. And there are ways that we can move to with breast cancer screening where that will happen at least fewer times. And that's my whole mission, is that what happened to me not happen to other people. And that means that we have to get smarter with breast cancer screening. And so My Density Matters, the website, was really my brainchild of wanting to convey this information that we've been discussing about breast cancer in a very easy to understand way. You can find out a lot about breast density on the internet, but a lot of it is in technical language. It's difficult to understand. It's hard to pull it all together in one place. So I wanted to create a website that was easy for women to understand, that they could go to, understand the issue, understand their options, and get downloads that could help them deal with their insurance company and talk with their doctors and give to their friends. And so that's why I created it. It's my only reason. Yeah.
So, Leslie, how did it happen that you were cleared with the and ultrasound? So then how did you even find out that you had cancer? Like, what happened in between that time?
Aha. It's an unusual story. So I was 55 at the time, and I was just doing all my yearly stuff that we all do. And my doctor said, okay, well, you're postmenopausal now, so it would behoove us to get you a bone density scan, just a plain old DEXA scan. to figure out your bone density, because as older women, we will tend to lose bone mass. But when you get older, if we don't have anything compared to from when you were younger, we won't know whether you lost bone or not. So I was like, well, that's reasonable. So I went and got a DEXA scan, and the doctor saw something weird in my bones. And then they said, well, we'd like you to get an X-ray. And I still didn't think too much of it. I'm like, yeah, well, maybe I've got a degenerative hip or something, whatever. I was just, busy doing other stuff. All right, I'll go get the X-ray. It's annoying, but I'll go get it, right? Because you told me to.
Yeah.
And then I did. And then they were like, oh, my gosh, something is really wrong. It looks like multiple myeloma, which is bone cancer. Basically, it's one of the bone cancers. And so we went through multiple myeloma testing. That didn't come out to be true. I don't have multiple myeloma. Then they did a bone biopsy, and that came back with breast cancer cells in the bone, which basically that means that your breast cancer has moved away from your breast and into the bones, and that's stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. And that's how it happened.
Lovely.
Yeah, I know. And all that happened over a course of 4 or 5 weeks. So it was kind of agony. One test, you go get one test, you wait 4 or 5 days to find out the results of the test, and then you wait 4 or 5 days to talk to the doctor if you get the results, and then you do, it goes on and on. And so it was kind of a hair-raising process, just to be honest.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
So what treatment did you undergo?
Right. Well, I mean, it's kind of fascinating because my treatment has really been quite easy. So all of this horrific stuff that women go through with the mastectomies and the lumpectomies and the radiation and the chemo and losing their hair and being sick and it's awful. And all that is done to keep that cancer from moving from the breast to the rest of the body. That's what it's really for. Because you cannot die of breast cancer in your breast. It's impossible. No one ever has. And that's because our breasts aren't vital organs, right? We can do without them.
Right.
We don't want to, but we can. And so it doesn't really hurt anything for the cancer to be in the breast. The problem is it travels, right? And that's what kills you, because it'll go to the lungs or the liver or whatever, and cause your body to start to misfunction. That ship already sailed for me. It was already in my bones. I didn't have to do the surgery or any of that kind of stuff. So I'm simply on 3 drugs. One is called letrozole, and it's basically just blocks all estrogen from your body because
I'm on that.
Is estrogen. Right, it's estrogen responsive, right? Right, so you know what being on letrozole is like. And then right, it's a little bit of bone pain and stiffness, and a little different for everybody, but it's tolerable. It is for me anyway. Yeah. And then I'm on something called Ibrance, which is a relatively new drug. It's advertised on TV.
Yes, I've
why
seen
they advertise
commercials.
Yeah, you've seen that? Yeah. The little tagline is, a lot has changed, but a lot hasn't. And it is a CDK4/6 inhibitor, which I'll just classify as a cell growth inhibitor. And you always take it with letrozole or something similar. And by golly, 3.5 years later, it's still working like a champ. I got a NEAD, they call it, no evidence of active disease scan, just this last Monday. God. So it's been working. Yeah.
Thank God.
Right? Woo!
How are you feeling physically?
I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good. I walk a lot, and I mean, before my diagnosis, I chalked it up to menopause, right? I thought I must feel not as good as I used to because I'm going through menopause. Because obviously you only go through menopause once. You don't know what it's like, right?
Right.
I just thought, maybe this is what post-menopause women feel like. And so it's just kind of draggy, not a lot of energy. But now I think I actually feel better. That's weird, isn't it?
I'm so glad to hear that. I just can't even imagine what you went through. I just can't.
It was rough. It was rough. And I think what the roughest part was is not knowing. You know, the diagnosis of, oh, you have multiple myeloma. Oh, no, you don't. Oh, we don't know what you have. Oh, right?
Yeah.
And we never, ever thought it was breast cancer because I just had the mammogram.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I'm thinking I'm looking up all these weird bone diseases and, totally off on the wrong track there. Not knowing, of course. So, very shocking.
So I'm so glad that because I believe that everything we go through has a purpose, and I'm just so glad that you now are an advocate for breast density because a lot of this information I didn't even know. And I'm sure, for a lot of our listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. Go to My Density Matters and spend some time on it and look, just look through, thumb through it. It's pretty easy to understand as we presented it, I think. Yeah. And I'm just, after all this, work and stuff that people have gone through to get this issue out in the open, people still don't know.
Exactly.
Don't know.
That's why I'm glad we're having this conversation.
Me too. Yeah. Oof. So let's
talk about your book, Probably Benign. How did you start that process?
Do you like the title?
Yes.
I love the title. Every book has to have that, catchy title. So, Probably Benign is one of the BI-RADS ratings. So, like when you get a mammogram, you get sort of like a number from 0 to 6. And 0, I forget what they all mean, but 3, BI-RADS 3 is probably benign. So that means they see something that could be cancer, but it probably isn't. So I just thought that phrase really just embodies where we are with breast cancer screening a lot of the time. Because don't you know this whole thing where people either get called back, yeah, probably not anything, yeah, I think it's fine,
but then it
or,
yeah,
and then let's watch that spot and see if it grows. I gotta tell you, that drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Like, really? Why are we
my
OBGYN
said that to me when I, went there and said I found a lump, and so he said he felt it too, but he's like, oh, it's probably nothing, but just to be safe, go get a mammogram, go get checked out, and then it was cancer. Because in my mind, when he told me it's probably nothing, I thought, oh, okay, well, yeah, it's probably nothing. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the statistics might actually be true. It probably is nothing. But what's
you don't know.
Probably about? I mean,
right.
Really? So some of these techniques that we talked about before, the molecular breast imaging, the contrast enhanced and the MRIs, they can get you a lot closer to yes or no. So that we as women can get out of this vicious kind of cycle that we're in. Yeah, probably not. You got density. I can't really see anything, but yeah, sorry about that. Not our fault. Yeah. That's kind of where we are.
Right,
Don't you think?
Yeah.
It's where we are. I'm like, what's the probably? Why is probably good enough? It isn't. It's just not good enough. When there are technologies that will tell us yes or no, or a whole lot closer to. I mean, a lot of times these things do turn out. I mean, like 80% of the biopsies are actually benign. Thank goodness. But why are we doing biopsies? That's the only reason we're doing biopsies like that is because the imaging can't tell us what we really need to know.
Yes, that is true.
Right? So that's why I named it Probably Benign, because I just thought I embodied kind of where we are. And many, many, many years ago, I got a probably benign on one of my mammogram reports. And I got the, come back. And then, you're probably, and I don't know if it's the cancer that I have today or not. I really don't know. But, it's possible. Probably not. It was a long time ago, but who knows, right? That's the thing.
Probably not.
Let's start knowing. Let's start knowing. Anyway, so the book is partly about a walk that I took called the Camino de Santiago. It's a 500-mile journey across the top of Spain. You start over the border in France and walk all the way across to a cathedral in a town called Santiago de Compostela, where supposedly the bones of St. James the Apostle of Jesus are kept in the cathedral. So it's, you've got these religious, journees, right? Like the road to Mecca and all of that. Yes. And for Christianity, it would be going to Jerusalem, I suppose, or going to the Vatican. And then another one might be walking the Camino de Santiago. So it's religious in root, but it's not really so religious completely that you wouldn't go if you weren't really, really religious. Like, there are Jewish people walking. There are people all over the world of different religions walking this trail. And so, it's a pilgrimage. So it's meant to sort of, reset your life, do some work that you need to do. And I kind of wanted to spend some time alone figuring out how am I going to live with not knowing. Like, I don't know I don't know anything, I don't know if my next scan's going to be good. I don't know what's going to happen after that. I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know anything. And that's kind of hard to live with. So I wanted to do some reckoning with that. And then I also used it as a fundraiser to fund a study that they were doing at the Mayo Clinic on molecular breast imaging. So I did both of those things.
Wonderful.
So I did a physical walk of 500 miles, and, there's so there's the physical journey of the walking, and then there's my personal journey of reckoning with things, kind of interwoven with the journey that we ought to be taking with breast cancer screening. So I weave those three themes all the way through the book, even though it starts the first day that I started walking and ends the day that I walked into the cathedral square. So
that's beautiful.
So it's not a monologue of my days and what I had for lunch dinner, and it's not that.
Okay.
But it's a metaphorical walk, if you will. And so that's what my book is about, and I really loved writing it. I never ever thought I would write a book, but it just kind of felt like what I ought to do, so I did it. And I hope that people enjoy it.
Therapy for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you learn about yourself during that journey?
What did I learn about myself? A lot, but one theme that really came through for me is, if not me, then who? If not now, then when?
Okay.
Because I really felt like, you go through the whole why me business when cancer. I mean, everybody does. It might last a minute. It might last 10 years, but everybody has the question at least once. But, I kind of thought, okay, why not me? Then maybe I'm the person who's supposed to tell Carrie this message forward and make a difference. Maybe that's my legacy. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And if it is what I'm supposed to be doing, then I should do it. Then I should do it. And maybe that's what this is for. And so if I'm going to do it, I better be doing it now. And maybe I am one of the people who can really make a difference with this and take something bad and turn it into something good. And so a lot of different parts of that I thought about while I was walking, but that was really kind of where I ultimately got to. And, I'll never say I'm grateful for having stage 4 cancer. I mean, that's just kind of a goofy thing to say, but
right.
It has given me up to keep on going and make a difference.
Yes. As I always say, there's a purpose for your pain. And you have a wonderful, wonderful story and testimony. And what advice would you give women regarding breast density as well as going through breast cancer?
Well, definitely, we talked about before, every woman should know her density. And I would find out that density and I would learn the options and insist and persist until you get what you feel that you need. Because our standard of care is not doing that for us right now. So learn and figure out what you want and get it. If you think you're being told no when you think you should be being told yes, then put your big girl pants on and get it one way or the other. Mm-hmm. Because we're not being served as well as we should be right now. I honestly believe that. And I see it way too much. I see women, asking for an ultrasound or something, and their doctor's like, no, that's not standard of care. We don't do that. I'm like, I don't care what standard of care is. Standard of care is not good enough for women with dense breasts. So we have to do the work because it's not being done for us right now. So that's the advice I would have for every woman. And then, honestly, this applies doubly so for survivors. If you have any, breast tissue left, if you haven't had a double mastectomy, and you have dense breasts, and you're a survivor, we all know the recurrence rate, you're at high risk. So anybody with dense breasts who's a survivor, who's being surveilled with mammography alone, I want to scream.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to scream. I think that's a crime. Because you're high risk and you're using a tool where you can't see. That's crazy.
But the good thing is, now because of our conversation, our listeners have been given the tools and they can now go in and advocate for themselves.
Right.
So that's a good thing. It's never too late.
Yeah. It's never too late. No, it's definitely not. And hopefully, the doctor will understand what we've been talking about and have a good, honest, solid conversation. That's where we really want to get to. Now, many of them will, but some of them won't. And there's nothing wrong with changing doctors.
Yes, I was going to suggest that as well. Yes.
Yeah, that'll get their attention.
Yeah. That also just reminds me, I've talked about this before, that I have a family history. My mother had breast cancer twice. I've had breast cancer. My sister went to her doctor and said she wanted to start getting mammograms before she was 40, and her doctor was like, no, you don't need to. And then she had to keep persisting, and then finally just got a different doctor because she's like, my mother and my sister both have had breast cancer, so I don't understand why I have to wait until I'm 40. So, that's a prime example where, if you just have to go out there and change your doctor, you just need to do it.
Yeah. You just need to do it. You need to be satisfied with the conversation and the results of your conversation. So this is our help, not the doctor. The doctors have their own doctors, right? And so I'm glad your sister did that because it was the right thing for her to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to start taking charge. We must take charge of our own self. Yes.
So, Leslie, this has been a wonderful conversation. I've been so excited and learned so much information. And so lastly, I just want to ask you, for our listeners, if they wanted to get in touch with you, learn more about My Density Matters, if they even wanted to get your book, Probably Benign, how can they do that?
Well, the easiest thing to do is to go to leslieferrisyerger.com, because from there you can buy the book either on my website or on Amazon. You can go to My Density Matters from there. You can contact me from there. So everything really is at leslieferrisyerger.com. To buy the book, to contact me, to book me as a speaker for your group. I've been speaking at a lot of women's groups, and that's been great. So contact me if you'd like to have a presentation. I do them obviously now all Zoom, but hopefully at some point we'll get back to doing some things in person. But leslieferrisyerger.com will get you all of that right from the front page.
Great. Yeah. Leslie, I want to thank you for coming onto the show, for giving us this powerful information, and I just want to thank you for being a vessel.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciated our time, and if anybody has any questions or they want to reach out, I would love to hear from any one of your listeners.
Great, and hopefully we'll have you back on the show.
That'd be great. I'd love to.
Great. Thank you so much, Leslie. You take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You are listening to Boob Talk, and we have been discussing the importance of breast density and screening options with our special guest, breast cancer survivor Leslie Ferris Yerger, author, speaker, and founder of My Density Matters. She gave us some vital information about being proactive regarding our breast health and screening, and so we would like to thank her for shedding light on the topic of breast density and also sharing her cancer journey. As I always say, knowledge is power, and we have to be proactive regarding our health. So until next time, God bless. You have been listening to Boob Talk with your host, Cynthia Rogers. Remember, never give up hope.